Back in September, I tweeted a take that I thought at the time was pretty lukewarm, but ended up making a lot of people very upset. For several weeks prior, I had been getting a particular Wall Street Journal ad constantly being promoted into my timeline, claiming that CVS, Home Depot, Ulta, and Target all have something in common. They're struggling to keep up with organized crime rings, stealing from their stores in bulk and selling the goods online, often on Amazon. Not only was I sick of seeing the same ad posted over and over again, but I was also sick of this increasingly common hysteria that was being pushed at me. The idea that I should give a shit that individuals are stealing from large corporate box stores. So I tweeted, "This keeps getting promoted to me, and I cannot stress enough that stealing from big box stores is fine. Did you know they have an entire playbook on how to avoid paying local taxes as they destroy independent businesses and abandoned buildings?" And then I linked to a post from Cory Doctorow about that very story, which I'll get back to in a minute. I had originally written stealing from big box stores isn't a big deal, but character limits made me change it to fine. I understand that fine is more open to interpretation and could be assumed to mean good, morally good instead. But I still figured that even if it was read that way, no one would really be upset about that slightly warmer take. I was wrong. One guy said that attitudes like mine are why psychotic Republicans gain office. And a marginally famous actor that I was mutuals with unfollowed me and said my tweet was frankly insane. I was surprised by these reactions, but I figured Twitter wasn't really the place to have that discussion. Obviously, YouTube is that place to have that discussion. Okay, no, not really that either. But I did decide to finally talk about it here when the San Francisco Walgreens story finally reached its inevitable conclusion, as it did last month. So I'm going to get to that. But first, I'll briefly go back and describe Cory Doctorow's excellent article about the big box hardware retailer Lowe's. You probably already know, or you should know, that national retailers like Walmart came to small towns and essentially obliterated them, starting more or less, in the 1990s. They could afford to sell their products at a cheaper price than local mom and pop stores, sometimes straight up taking a loss on sales because all they had to do was wait for those other stores to go bankrupt before there was no more competition and they could charge whatever they want. It's the same model Amazon has used to then put some of those same big box stores like Borders out of business. But what I didn't know until I read Doctorow's piece is how those big box stores screw over small towns even after Amazon has put them out of business, using the dark store gambit. A corporation with an existing big box store in a town appeals its tax assessment with that town, arguing that their property is overvalued because similar properties are selling for much less. Those similar properties are other big box stores that have gone out of business. Those properties are essentially worthless because those stores are built specifically to be, for instance, a Borders bookstore or a Lowe's hardware store or a Walmart superstore. And when they're put on the market, they often have clauses that prohibit them from being sold to a competitor. Like the only other company that could possibly make use of an empty Borders might be another bookstore like Barnes & Noble, but Barnes & Noble may be contractually prohibited from buying it and then selling books inside. So the property just sits there, unused and crumbling and worthless. And next door, there's an open Lowe's that is a profitable store, but on similar property to the empty store, and therefore they are determined to be worthless, and they get tax breaks. Doctorow points out that a Lowe's in Michigan successfully used this tactic to slash its tax assessment from $10 million down to $1.5 million which forced the town it was in to pay Lowe's $755,000. Forcing that town to, in order to cover that bill, slash its library, police, and fire department budgets. So big box retailers aren't just forcing local retailers to shut their doors, leading to ghost main streets in towns across the United States. They're also nearly bankrupting these small towns, stealing individuals' tax dollars, and taking away taxpayer-funded community services. Throw that on top of the fact that companies like Walmart end up paying less and offering fewer benefits compared to the employers that they put out of business. And yeah, I think it's not that big of a deal to say that nobody should be kept awake at night worrying about people shoplifting from national retailers. I mean, the CEOs definitely aren't worried about it. So why is the Wall Street Journal so insistent that I worry about it? Of course, it's helpful for those companies if you think that they care about shoplifting, which is why here in the Bay Area, we've been inundated with these breathless news stories of gangs of shoplifters terrorizing Walgreens, a nationwide pharmacy. That included one viral video of a shoplifter who grabbed a bunch of stuff, hopped on a bike, and then rode away as a security guard did nothing, stood there and filmed him. After months of these types of reports, Walgreens announced that the shoplifters had won and that the government was previously forced to shut down 17 locations in San Francisco, including 5 just this past month. San Francisco Board of Supervisors Asha Safai of District 11 said he was devastated by the loss of the store on Mission Street on Twitter, writing, "I am completely devastated by this news. This Walgreens is less than a mile from 7 schools and has been a staple for seniors, families, and children for decades. This closure will significantly impact this community." Well, geez, there we go. I guess I was wrong. Shoplifting is not a victimless crime, and we should very much care about it. Just kidding. Turns out Walgreens was probably lying. According to a San Francisco Chronicle investigation, one of the stores that they're closing due to shoplifting had only reported 7 thefts in the past year. And of all of the stores they announced most recently, they had an average of 2 reported thefts per month going all the way back to 2018. Oh, and that viral video of the guy biking out of the store with his ill-gotten gains while the security guard did nothing, he was arrested and charged, thanks in part to the security guard who rightfully chose to document the situation instead of risking injury by intervening. So if shoplifting is still actually pretty rare at these locations, why is Walgreens closing them? Well, here are, though, a few unrelated facts that I'd just like to read to you for no reason. Number 1, Walgreens currently has 53 locations in the city of San Francisco. San Francisco encompasses about 47 square miles. That means that on average, you're never more than a 15-minute walk from a Walgreens. And also in some neighborhoods, you can enjoy an entire tour of 4 different Walgreens during that same 15-minute stroll. Number 2, in comparison to Walgreens' 53 San Francisco locations, its closest competitor, CVS, has only 22 stores. CVS has not announced any closures, despite surely suffering from the same shoplifting epidemic as Walgreens. Number 3, in 2017, Walgreens told their shareholders they plan to close 600 stores by 2019. They ended up closing 769 stores. Number 4, in 2019, they informed the SEC that they would be closing 200 more stores by 2022. Number 5, at the end of 2020, Walgreens had to settle with their own employees for $4.5 million due to wage theft and other violations. Number 6, in February of this year, Walgreens hired a new CEO at $1.5 million per year salary with a $25 million signing bonus, an annual bonus of up to 200% her earnings, an additional $11 million in stock options each year, relocation costs, benefits, and use of the corporate jet for up to 50 hours each year. Number 7, around that same time, Walgreens reported a $308 million loss in its 2021 fiscal first quarter. The loss was primarily tied to its pharmaceutical wholesale business. The company had seen a dramatic drop in store traffic and pharmacy volume during the COVID-19 pandemic, with stay-at-home orders adversely affecting retail sales at its 9,000 locations in the U.S. and thousands more worldwide. Number 8. Last month, the former chief financial officer of Walgreens testified in the trial against Elizabeth Holmes, the alleged con artist at the helm of Theranos, the tech company that promised impossible blood testing abilities. Why was he testifying, you ask? Well, because back in 2014, Walgreens sunk $140 million into the Theranos scam. They sued, trying to get it back, but ended up settling for less than $30 million, a net loss of $110 million. So, 5 stores are being closed in San Francisco, and that just so happens to fit in with a current right-wing narrative that it's all because of thugs stealing deodorant, which fills the time up on Fox News, riling up their viewers to get angry about the lawless liberal enclave of San Francisco. And it gets Walgreens great sympathy as they proceed to lose hundreds of millions of dollars on scams and lawsuits while closing 900 stores around the country for no reason without a peep of complaint from anyone. And that, friends, is why I will never, ever care about shoplifting. Is it morally wrong? Sure. Usually. Maybe. I mean, it depends. But is it a big deal? Absolutely not. It's fine. It's whatever. I'll direct my anger elsewhere. Thanks.